Hello and welcome to BBC News School Report. Today I'm here with Steve Brine.
Steve's an MP for Winchester and also has a background in journalism.
How did you become an MP?
Through a lot of hard work. So being an MP has probably the longest job interview you can imagine, and some very lucky people get selected for seats just before general elections. I got selected 4 years before the 2010 general election. So you have to apply for seats, and I think about 300 people applied to be the candidate for my party, for Winchester, and then over 4 years I had to campaign against all the other parties, and then come the general election, I won. So yeah, it's a long road, different routes into, people can be in the media, like Boris Johnson and Michael Gove, more superstars that then move into Parliament. People can come up through local councils, and some people come through trade unions and through that route. But these days, there are more professions than ever making their way into Parliament. One MP, one of my colleagues, was a postman a week before the election and is now in the House of Commons.
Who inspired you to be an MP?
Okay, a number of people. In this country, probably Margaret Thatcher, because she was elected in the 50s when there were barely any women's toilets in Parliament, and it was mostly men that were MPs, and she was one of the first. She rose to be the leader of her party. She then managed to become Prime Minister and tell all the boys what to do, and that was pretty impressive. So when I was your age, when I was at secondary school, she was Prime Minister. I remember her riding in the tank in the Falklands War. She was an incredibly iconic, strong leader. She sort of caught my eye. But other people around the world, I was always impressed with Kennedys in America and the way that John Kennedy managed to get people to believe in politics being the art of the possible, and that you can do things, you can change things. He really enthused people, and I thought that was quite inspiring.
Do you find certain elements of your job more challenging than others?
Yeah, definitely. So it's not all glamour on the television, It's very rarely is it that. Mostly it's jolly hard work, and I'm away 2-3 nights a week in London. I've got a young family, children at primary school, and a wife at home who has to hold the fort all the time when I'm away, and that's very hard. But it's hugely rewarding, and before I come to see you today at Henry Beaufort, I've been holding my surgery, which is just like a doctor's surgery. People are booked in, 20-minute appointments. They come in with all manner of problems and challenges, and you can help them, and that feels fantastic. So there's lots of challenge. Every job has an upside and a downside, and being an MP is no different. But it's a fantastically rewarding job, but it comes at a price.
What rewards do you get from being an MP?
Okay, well, it's the ability to influence people's lives. It's the ability to help people who are in difficult positions. So people will come to an MP usually as the last resort. That's how it should work. Anyway, they would come to you because they've got a housing issue or a benefit issue or an issue with the local health service, and they're usually desperate. And the little portcullis on the top of the headed notepaper, the House of Commons, and that headed notepaper, that still makes a difference. And you can still help people. And I've been doing this now for almost 7 years, and the number of people throughout that time that we've been able to help is absolutely fantastic. And it's a great feeling when somebody comes to you in a very desperate, low position, and you can help make their life a little bit better. And every MP I know experiences that on a daily basis, and it feels great.
What's your favourite thing about being an MP?
Other than the sports cars and the money, that's not true. What's my favourite thing about being an MP? Well, I like being part of the debate. I like being part of where the action is. As I said, I like helping people. But I used to work in the media, and it was great reporting on the news. It was great. I used to love it. It was very exciting. It was very vibrant. But I'm much more interested in being part of the news than I am reporting on it, and that's why I stopped ultimately being a journalist. But it is great being in the centre of things, and the House of Commons, Churchill famously called it the cockpit of the nation, and it is. It is. Things that happen in the House of Commons really matter. When you stand up and say something in the House of Commons, people take a huge amount of notice, and you can really be part of the national debate, and that's great.
What is your least favourite thing about being an MP?
Okay, well, government is very frustrating, and the thing to understand is that being a backbench MP in opposition is very, very different to being a government frontbench government minister in government. And I'm very lucky that ever since I've been in Parliament, my party's been in power. So I've managed to be a government backbencher, and I'm now a government minister. So that is great. But even at that level, government is still incredibly frustrating. Things move very slowly. I came from a small business background before I was in Parliament, where you could make decisions, and those decisions would affect immediate change. Government doesn't work that way, and probably shouldn't, because decisions have to go through lots of processes, and that can be incredibly frustrating.
What does a typical week look like for an MP?
So, MP's life is completely split between Westminster and constituency, well, when the House is sitting anyway, and the House is sitting at the moment. So, generally speaking, we're in London Monday morning, and I leave London on Thursday afternoon, and then Friday is constituency day, today, and then obviously Saturday and Sunday, quite a lot of constituency engagements as well. So, generally the ebb and flow of it when the House is sitting is Monday to Thursday, Westminster, Friday, Saturday and Sunday is for constituency stuff, and then occasionally try and have a life around that.
When contributing to discussions, how do you put together a formal response?
What you mean in the House of Commons?
Yeah.
Well, I think it depends with experience, to be honest. So, when you're first elected, you have it written out. It's like anything, you have it written out and you read it verbatim. And then as you get a bit more experience, you learn to just sort of put bullet points, really, and you can make a speech around that. And that's the better way of doing it, because it just sounds so awful when people read speeches in the House of Commons. And, the whole point is that it's a debating chamber. And as you're making speeches, people will intervene on you. So they'll say, will you give way? And then you say, yeah, sure. And then they make their point. And then you come back, then you resume your speech. And if you've got a script, it's very hard to do that. You want to be able to think on your feet. And that's how I do it.
Why are you a member of the Conservative Party?
Why am I a member of the Conservative Party? Well, I guess my parents were Conservatives, but we never really talked about politics at home. I mean, I know subsequently that they were, but I think I'm not particularly interested in dogma. I'm not interested in too much in ideology. I'm really interested in pragmatism. I'm interested in what works. So I think that makes me a Conservative. I think also I'm interested in people spending their own money. I think people are better guarantors of their own money than the state. Generally, the state taking money from people in order to spend a lot of money processing it and then spending it themselves. Obviously there has to be an element of that happening, but I'm generally in favour of a bigger society and a smaller state. But there are obviously huge numbers of things the state has to do, and it has to do them well, and it does, like education. But the Department of Education doesn't run every school. It doesn't run this school, nor should it. So there's some of the things why I'm where I am on the political spectrum.
What did you hope to achieve when you joined the Conservative Party?
Well, I mean, I suppose originally when I joined the Conservative Party, I was just, I was a local campaigner. I just used to help them put the leaflets through the doors. I never for a minute imagined that I would be an MP. I was the first person in my family to go to university. None of my parents or aunties and uncles, let alone my grandparents, have been to university. So I never imagined for a minute that I would end up doing that. All I hoped to achieve was to be interested in current affairs. I thought it would be a chance for me to learn about current affairs and to be part of the debate, and things sort of went from there. And then I ended up seeing Winchester come up, standing for Winchester, getting elected for Winchester, and now I find myself the MP for Winchester, and then obviously got re-elected in 2015 and almost 7 years been doing it now. So I don't think you can go into politics with too many expectations. You just have to go into it with, I hope, an open mind and an open heart, and you have ideas that you want to help people, but ultimately it's just about taking part in some public service, and it's a fantastic feeling. It's a fantastic job. I'd recommend it to anyone.
So what's your opinion on Brexit?
Well, I wasn't a Brexiteer. I didn't vote for it. I didn't campaign for it. But there is a clue in the title of democracy. And we gave the people the say. Most votes in this country happen in the House of Commons. We make the decisions on your behalf, and we are representatives. So we'll listen to what constituents are saying. We'll read extensively. We'll listen to what people are lobbying us. We'll listen to what ministers are saying in the government, and then we make decisions on some issues that are so big, like whether we should be a member of the European Union or not, We decided as a House of Commons, we voted overwhelmingly to give that decision to people. And people made a decision, and we can argue till the cows come home whether they were right or wrong to make that decision, but they made a decision, and we now have to give effect to that. So, I'm positive about it. I'm not a doom monger. I think we can make a fantastic success of this country. I was born in 1974, and this country joined the European Union as is in 1975. As far as I remember, this country did survive before 1975. I think it can again, and we will make a fantastic success of it, and we have to.
You have a background in journalism. What was it like being one of the BBC's youngest reporters?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was so exciting. I was on a journalism course in Portsmouth at Highbury College, and we were sent to our work experience, and I went to Isle of Wight Radio, and because it was a small independent radio station and didn't have many people, I found myself reading the news on the second day I was there. And I thought, this is great. I loved it. I love the immediacy of it. I love the urgency of it. I love the way that news breaks, and you turn it around, you put it on the radio, or you put it on the television, and that is an incredible buzz. It's a great, great feeling. And it was great to be part of an organisation, as I then worked within the BBC. It was great to be part of this amazing, world-renowned broadcasting organisation that is respected all around the world, and wherever you went in the country or the world, people would always recognise and respect the BBC, and that's not the case with every news outlet. A lot of fake news around these days. People always respected the British Broadcasting Corporation, so it was a great privilege to be part of it.
Just a random question. Why did you call your dog Popcorn?
I didn't call him Popcorn, the breeders call him Popcorn, but he sort of, when he was little and almost 13 now, still does bounce like a piece of popcorn in the pan, so I thought this was a good name, so we kept it.
If you were the Prime Minister, what 3 changes would you make that you currently don't agree with?
Oh my goodness. So there are loads of things that we haven't yet got around to doing that I would love us to do. So I spent a huge part of the last Parliament on one of the select committees, the Justice Select Committee. I'm hugely passionate about prison reform. I think there are too many people in prison in our country. We can't afford it, and we are not making the most of their lives. And they have, generally speaking, come from bad situations and done bad things, for which of course they have to be punished, but we end up making it worse. There are too many women in prison, there are too many old people in prison, there are way too many people with mental health problems in prisons, and it costs more a year to keep somebody in prison than it does to send them to Eton. And this is a bad use of, I would suggest to you, and you asked me earlier why am I Conservative, because I favour a smaller state. The prison service is a big state. It's the state getting it wrong, and the state gets it wrong time and time again. Prison is ultimately state failure. I would love to see prison reform. I'd love to see prisons be much more places of rehabilitation where people who've done wrong come in and have to pay their penalty to society, but when they come out, they're reformed and they don't just go back in and do it again.
Mm-hmm. What was it like working in Chicago in a radio station?
It was amazing. They called me the British dude, which was kind of weird, but because I have an English accent, and most people in Chicago is real America. New York is a bit like London. I don't think it's necessarily representative of America, and the West Coast and California is a whole new world. Chicago is just middle America, and most people there had not been to England, and they loved my accent, and I was on the radio there, and because the Midwest is as flat as a pancake, we used to have millions and millions of listeners. The signal used to fly for miles, and we used to have millions of listeners. It was an incredible buzz. I used to go out on the streets on the Magnificent Mile, as it's called, which is the big high street in the middle of Chicago. I used to go out on the streets and do vox pops with a microphone and ask people about crazy English things. And they used to look at me like I'd come from another planet. And it was great fun. It was great being a novelty, and that's what you were as an English reporter in Chicago. You were a bit of a novelty.
Yeah.
It was great fun. I played it for all it was worth.
Who do you think's going to win the Premier League as a Spurs supporter?
Spurs.
Rather voted for Hillary or Trump?
That's a horrible question. I would not have voted for Hillary in a million years. Would I have voted for Trump? Probably not. There's a lot of talk about the Republican Party and the Conservative Party being sisters. They're not really. I mean, the Republican right and the Conservative right in this country are very, very different. I probably wouldn't have voted for either of them, to be honest. The Donald is a force of nature. And we have got to get a grown-up strategy to dealing with Donald Trump. He is the elected president of our oldest ally and the most powerful country in the world. And calling him names and walking around Westminster with placards is not very grown up or sensible, or I would suggest beneficial to our country. So, you know, he is, you can tell your friends things that you can't tell your enemies. And I would suggest that he's a better friend than an enemy.
Did you know what you would do when you finish university?
No, I wanted to go to America and work in the media, and I did. I had my MP come into school when I was your age and talk to us about the life of Parliament, and he was a minister at the time, and I thought then that looked like something I was interested in, but you couldn't possibly at 12 years of age have planned it. When I left university, I still hadn't had it planned. I just thought that it was something I wanted to do. I wanted to work in the media, and that would be the way that I'd be involved in current affairs. But as I said to you, I found out I was much more interested in shaping current affairs than just reporting on them. And I found I was too political. I was too party political to be involved in the media. And, you know, I suggest to you this is not the case with every journalist. I didn't want to take my political bias into the media. I wanted to be the other side of the camera and the other side of the microphone. So no, I didn't know when I left university that this is what I wanted to do, but I just had it in the back of my mind.
Do you agree with how social media portrays on kids and how they act in their lives?
I think social media is an amazing resource and a great threat. You know, there is a program, I was at a junior school in Chandlers in my constituency last month talking about the Internet Legends program. You know, and social media and the internet has so many great things about it, but it can be so dangerous. You know, and we see it in our world. You know, the online, the trolling, the abuse, the bullying that goes on. You know, and that's just MPs. You know, I see what goes on online, and it can be a force for good, but it has to be watched, and you have to be responsible. And above all, you have to remember that everything you post online is going to be there forever. Yeah, there are social media sites where those posts disappear, but they don't really disappear. They're there somewhere. You know, social media didn't exist when I was at school, but it does now. And when you apply for a job in the future, everything that you've posted will still be there. So the first thing I do when somebody applies for a job in my office is I look them up on Facebook. I look up to see what they've been doing before they came to me. And it tells me far more about them than their qualifications. It tells me a bit about their personality and whether they're somebody ultimately that I can trust. So, you know, social media can be a force for good, but it can also be overused.
That was our BBC School Report interview.
And thank you for watching.